Just had a very interesting day today, bro. I was done performing some advanced mechanics on moving metals. So essentially I just went to the gym. But this is amino acids. Now, who is Amino and why was he doused in acid? I'm going to tell you about it today, bro. So if you're new to the channel, subscribe to the video, like all that bollocks. Let's get into it. Alright, bro. So I'm showing you here a protein, okay? And this kind of just looks like, I don't know, your nan's hair or something, okay? It's a weird looking thing, squiggly and all that bollocks. But this is a protein, okay? Now, so these are quite massive, complex molecules, okay? They're really large. And in order to get to what an amino acid is, we got to break this down a little bit and zoom in. So we got our magic magnifying glass and let's see what's in here. Alright, we've caught our suspect here. And he kind of just looks like a magical Cheeto. I don't know. Now, this is what makes up a protein, okay? A bunch of these. And we call this a polypeptide, okay? Now, I don't expect you to know what that is because I'm going to really explain what it is later on the video. But just understand that this is a polypeptide and it makes up a protein, okay? A bunch of these put together. Now, let's zoom in even more, okay? Take our magic magnifying glass and zoom in a little bit more. And here we go. This is our prime suspect, okay? A Cheeto. We've caught him. Now, this is what we call an amino acid. This right here, okay? It's the primary building block for all these different polypeptides in the protein, okay? This little oddly shaped Cheeto, okay? Right here. Now, in reality, it really isn't actually a Cheeto, okay? I'm just making that shit up. What it really is, it looks like this, okay? Now, this probably scares a bunch of you, but it's not that crazy, okay? I'm going to explain it. So let's break down this amino acid a little bit more, okay? So on the right here, we have something called a carboxylic acid, okay? Or a carboxylic group, right? Whatever. Call it whatever you like. Now, this is where the acid comes from. In the name amino acid, this is where it comes from. The carboxylic acid is responsible for giving it the name acid, amino acid. And again, it ties back to what I said. You can just infer anything from the name in biology. That's how easy it is. Now, let's go back to our little weird molecule, okay? So on the left here, we have something called the amine group, or the amino group, okay? And again, it ties back to the name. That's where amino comes from. The amine group, amino. You can literally just figure out the entire structure based on the name. Now, we've got a little cheeky hydrogen here on the bottom and an R on the top. Now, what is an R? Now, you might have your guess already as to what is this R. And no, it is not an atom. I mean, what would it even be called? Boobies? Like, no, okay? R is not an atom. R is simply the variable group, okay? Meaning, it can be anything really. Anything can really be in R. It could be a methyl group, it could be a hydrogen, it could be a sulfur, whatever, okay? And that leads us on to this next point, which is that all three of these groups always stay the same across all amino acids. Every amino acid has the same amine group, carboxylic group, and hydrogen on the bottom. However, the R group is what changes. It changes across all amino acids, and this is what makes it so special. Each amino acid is unique based on this R group, and there's 20 of them. There's 20 of these bad boys because of their deviating R groups, their variable groups. So a variable group is what makes them special. It could be, whatever. Right, let's take our bad boy again, this amino acid, and let's give him his buddy, okay, his friend. Another amino acid lines up next to it, and you can probably tell what they're going to do, okay? They might make love, they might kiss, okay? This polar hydroxyl group on the carboxylic part is attracted to this amine part, okay? They are really in love, they're romantic, and so you line these up together, and they do in fact make love, they kiss. So this part here is what reacts, okay? And you put them together and they form this peptide bond. That's what we call it. We call it a peptide bond. When these things make love That's what it looks like, okay? And I'd recommend learning what these things look like, how to spot these out, how to recognize them, okay? It's just a con, right? Con, C-O-H-N, that's what it looks like, okay? So you need to learn how to recognize these guys and point them out if AQA asks you to. You need to be able to recognize these, what we call it an amide bond or a con or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Just call it whatever you want, but be able to recognize this thing. And you'll see that this whole thing that we've just formed here is called a dipeptide. So we've got 2 amino acids here. We've got one on the left here, one on the right, and this is our peptide bond. And so, just like we did with monosaccharides and disaccharides, when you put these guys together, they form water. Because look, the OH on this part and the H on this part, they combine together to release a molecule of water. And again, we call this a condensation reaction. You can see a pattern here. This happens with many different molecules, whether it's an amino acid, sugar, whatever. These things form. It's quite easy, bro. Here, one amino acid reacts with another amino acid. They make love, and they form a dipeptide, releasing a molecule of water, and they can do the reverse. You can put in water, throw it at the dipeptide like a spell, and you break it apart. And it kind of makes sense, bro, because the water is giving back the OH that was lost on this carbon, and it's giving back the hydrogen that this nitrogen lost, okay? It's giving back these molecules and forming them back into their constituent parts. Here you've got this hydroxyl that just came back, and here you've got the hydrogen that just came back. And that's where it comes from. It comes from the water, and we call this hydrolysis. It's just like before with saccharides.
Hey Kanye, did she put her fingers up your booty? No.
This can kind of just keep going. Like, it can just stack on and on and on. So here I'm bringing one amino acid, and then I bring another one. This is the second, and I bring a third one, and then I bring a fourth one, and a fifth one, and they all just kind of make very violent, vigorous love to each other, kind of like a Diddy party. And so now I've just formed this massive molecule, okay? It's a massive polypeptide, and this is the peptide bonds that I'm highlighting here. And of course, they all release their water because they've all had a condensation reaction. And so this is what we call a polypeptide, bro. And bro, they're not going to be highlighting it for you in the exam. You're going to need to know where these peptide bonds are and what they look like. Just recognize what they look like and you're chilling. And so when this does happen, when you have this small little, polypeptide, to have this, group Diddy party, they all bond to each other. We actually call this a primary structure, and this is what it looks like, okay? I'm showing you the Cheeto structure here again, because it's just easier for me to edit, honestly. But this is what it looks like, and we call this a primary structure. Now, if I was to start inviting more amino acids into this little weird Diddy party we have here, it starts to grow, okay, and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is what I'm showing you here. And we actually call this a secondary structure. Now, there's 2 ways this differs from the primary structure. With first being that, of course, it's longer, right? That's obvious. But the second way is actually the way it looks, okay? Just like before with carbohydrates, you'll find that these guys, they start to form hydrogen bonds in between each other, right? You see it here. They start to kind of cheat on each other. They start to kind of see other people. They're forming hydrogen bonds between other amino acids in the structure. And because of that, it starts to bend the structure. And there's 2 ways this bad boy can coil. It can either coil into an alpha helix, or it can become this weird beta pleated sheet, which kind of looks a bit like this, okay? So just understand that they can form these attractions to each other in the chain, and it starts to coil up the longer the chain gets. And so, because the reason why this happens is kind of because of these polar groups here. You've got this hydroxyl that's polar, you've got this amide that's polar, you've got the R groups as well that can be polar or ionic. And because they're all charged and it's like a whole charged mess, they start to attract each other in various ways, and they start to make love to each other in the chain, and they start to all kind of bend. So just understand that level 1 is the primary structure, and it's just the basic sequence of amino acids that just join up together, and it's just, basic, okay? It's short, it's small, and it's simple. Level 2 is a secondary structure, and it starts to get bigger, and it starts to, get all messy and coiled, okay? They generally just either coil into their alpha helix or bend into their beta plated sheet because of these attractions that they're forming to each other. So yeah, pretty easy, bro. Pretty simple. Just learn that, honestly, and you'll be chilling like a villain. So, should be the end of the video then. Make sure to subscribe the video, like all that bollocks, and I'll see you in part 2, bro.